welcome back to yet another 213 Crispy video, and today we got another lawnmower. This particular one is a Snapper, self-propelled, model number 7800179. I don't believe this is a terribly old unit, but I have not looked up the serial numbers or anything to try to cross-reference what year it was actually made in. So, long story short, picked this up in non-running condition. I have not even tried to start it. Haven't tried doing anything to it. To me, it felt like a couple cables were broke, and she told me it would not start worth a crap. So it tells me the carburetor issues. Obviously, somebody's tinkered with some of the bolts on the plastic cover, and it looks like the plastic cover might be cracked. That's cosmetic. I'm not that worried about any of that. So we'll figure this part out later. The biggest thing that concerns me is the springs missing on the safety. That's probably the biggest thing. It does have oil, but it's pretty dark and it's on the lower side. So what I'm gonna do is we are going to take off the air cleaner assembly real quick, shoot some starter fluid in it, and we'll see if it'll fire. And if it does, then we're going to put it on the workbench, take apart the carburetor, get it cleaned up, and then we will address that spring towards the end of the video and the cosmetic stuff. So let me get you reset up on trying to get this started, and we'll be right back. So I went ahead and taken the air cover assembly off. So we're going to squirt a little bit of starting fluid in here. And we'll see if it will fire. Not looking good. So that's the switch. I feel like there was an arm that's supposed to cover over that. One more time. So that tells me we probably don't have spark. So let me tinker around with this off camera for a few minutes, but I think it's linked to our kill switch brake assembly that's over here, and I think that's why it's also kind of hard to pull. I think I'm missing a linkage or a lever with that's missing. So let me go look at another motor real quick, pull up some schematics, and then we will tinker with this in a minute. So I was doing a little tinkering, took the top plastic cover off so I can get to better linkage or better sight of the linkage, and the motor's showing signs of life, but there's definitely some issues going on somewhere with this. I know that. So this allows me to get to the choke. So if I open the choke, spray a little bit down, and close that choke, and then make sure that that is in the most forward position. When I bought it, they had put a zip tie around that to keep it as far forward as possible. So if you watch, now it's going to make me laugh. I was able to get the puff. There it went. So you can see it's starting to smoke, and it tried backfiring out the carburetor. So it's got some signs of life. So I think it's the biggest issue I'm fighting is spark, which is linked to the kill switch brake assembly that's over here. So we're going to tinker, I think, with this, but we're also going to rebuild the carburetor, because I know the carburetor is going to be gummed up as all get out. So let's get you up on the workbench and we will start tearing it apart. I hope you guys are able to see what I'm getting ready to show you. So it's going to be hard to tell from this angle, but This is that, it's called a brake, engine brake. So inside here is your flywheel, and on there is all part of your timing and everything else. On the back side of this there's a brake on this lever, and there's supposed to be a spring pushing this perch to this perch together, fighting this. So when you let go of your handbrake, then this squeezes together, and there's a pad that rubs up against that flywheel, and it actually stops the engine. So that's what this does. But also part of this is this right here. This is also basically your kill switch for the ignition, and there's a little tiny metal tab that falls down. So you notice when I move this, you might see an arm come into picture, which I think you see about right there. That arm is pushing this little tiny tab up and down, and you notice this top piece that's part of that switch is moving. So that's what we were fighting when it comes to spark. I think it might be linked to a bad connection between this arm and this switch, or this switch has just a bunch of corrosion on it. But long story short, that's what that is. So we're gonna deal with this later. I should be able to zip tie this together just for troubleshooting purposes to see if we have a working engine once I rebuild the carburetor. And once that's the case, then I will tackle on finding a replacement spring to put on here, which then should in turn fix some of the issues that we're having with this as well. I'm hoping that's what's going to happen. I think I have an extra lawnmower out back that has this assembly that I'll rob either the whole assembly from, or we will just take the spring. I don't know yet. I haven't looked into what it's going to take. I haven't looked that far into it yet. We'll find out. It's a blown up, or let me rephrase it. It's a locked up, exact same engine, everything. So that's what we're gonna do. So let's tear the carburetor apart. So let me get you on the other side, and we'll be right back, guys. Now that we got you back, let's go ahead and tear apart our carburetor. So if my memory serves me correctly, we start off with an 8mm, and this one has 1, 2, and 3 that we got to worry about getting off. So again, like I've told you this before, every model's a little different than the other, and some use only 2, some use 3. It's I guess just preference from the manufacturer on how they want to do it. So we're going to remove that, and then on the back side will be an air breather, so get that removed. So in this particular engine, looks like there's an inline fuel filter, so odds are that is going to get removed, and I'll probably put all new fuel line on. It does not cost a whole lot for that, but we'll get to that part in a minute. I'm missing my needle nose. I knew I had them somewhere. There's that. Let's get that broke free. There's like no fuel in the tank, or not enough to really worry about, but I know there is fuel in it. As you see, there's some running out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tuck that up behind there. It's real low on the level, so that's why you don't see me clamping off the fuel line. Man, I cannot talk today. Next step is we gotta get back to these two, and I don't think that those are 8s. I think they were 10s. Yeah, those are bigger. So those are 10mm. And that's what's nice about having extensions and stuff like that on a on this is because, like my impact, electric impact, for that exact reason. Makes life a lot easier. So the linkages on this one, we've got a top spring that runs across the top. We've got a spring that runs across the side. And then we've got our governor linkage that runs across there. And then we are going to remove, yeah, we're gonna have to remove that anyway. So let's go and remove that choke. That choke's actually a really interesting design. It's not an 8, it's probably a 6. Nope, 7. Ooh, 6.5, which I don't have. If that's the case, let's try a 6 again. Huh. Well, can't imagine that being standard. Let me see if I can't get this apart without taking that arm off. Because that should be free. I'm trying to remember what holds that in. It's been a while since I've taken one of these apart that has this style choke. Yeah, arm's gotta come out. So I don't want to strip it. That's the last thing I want to do. Let me go grab my SAE kit and we'll see if we got something that fits that. So I'll be right back, guys. And actually, you can't even see what I'm doing anyway. So what we're doing is we're fighting with this arm, which is your choke, and I'll explain that when I get back. So let me go grab my SAE kit and see if I have one that fits. I am back and we have the correct size socket, which is a 1/4 inch, by the way. So I'll show you what this linkage does and how it functions. So when your carburetor is mounted, just like so, the air that spins around from your flywheel and the fan and everything that's mounted up here will push this open. So this, and it's pulled back by the spring. Let me get the spring out of here, which is all kinds of bent up, by the way. Oops. That was bad. So the spring pulls back on this assembly, which is fighting to keep this door closed. And you notice this linkage all goes down to the very front butterfly, which is your choke. So what happens is when this motor comes up to temperature and it starts generating some air speed and the fans, the wind pushes this arm out, and in turn, you see it opens and closes this butterfly, and it's all precision based off of the engine running and the RPMs. And so when it detects that it's running, it kicks open, and when it's off or not running correctly, then it closes and tries to choke out the engine and tries to give it more fuel. So that's how this design works. It's a very simple design when it works. Just you got to have the right springs, and it takes the right tension and so forth for this to get where it needs to be. So 1/4 inch socket. And that's just going to be a small threaded post, and that post is what holds this arm in place onto the carburetor. And then the last thing we got left is our governor spring, which is really our throttle control. Come on. Twist that around and get that out. So there we go. So now we got our carburetor completely disassembled and away from this assembly. So this is that fan I was telling you about. I guess it doesn't come out. I thought it did. Maybe I have to take the metal cap apart. It's been a while since I've actually torn one completely apart for this being broke. This usually doesn't break. It's all plastic, but it's a very simple, easy design. So let's go ahead and grab ourselves, I'm trying to remember what size this float bowl is. It's 13 millimeter. So let's go ahead and we're going to tear this open real quick and take a look, a peek-see inside to see exactly what the inside of this float bowl looks like. As you see, there's fuel in it because it just leaked out all over the place. So we're going to set our main jet down, and I'm going to tap on this. It's a bad spot for it. There it goes. Probably going to end up buying a new carburetor for this one, but for short terms. So yeah, so if you ever wondered what gas and water look like mixed together, this is a prime example of it. And you know what, this carburetor don't look bad, especially the insides. I think it's just been sitting. So let me see if I can get this in picture and in focus for you guys to see what I'm talking about. So zoom in, focus, and turn the exposure down. See if I can get a little closer. So you notice at the very, very bottom of this pool of whateverness you want to call this, right back there, might be hard to see. I know I'm shaking, so it's not helping you guys any. But that little ball, that's water. So the bottom of it's fuel, that's all fuel, that's water. So like I've always told you, you can tell the difference from water and fuel. So there's a little bit of gunk down there in the bottom, not enough to really worry about. And then same thing in the bottom of this. The carburetor actually looks pretty good. I don't see anything that sticks out like an eyesore of saying that, oh my gosh, this thing needs like a terrible cleaning. But we're going to take it apart. We're going to throw this thing in the ultrasonic cleaner since we've got it this far apart. We're going to tear everything apart. The pen, needle, the whole 9 yards. We'll throw it in there and then let this thing soak for a bit. Yep, so that's what we're gonna do. And there should be a needle or something somewhere around here too, but I'll tinker with that in a little bit. So let me get off here and we'll be back, guys. I'll take you on the workbench. So as you see, we got it running. So tore apart the carburetor, threw it in the ultrasonic cleaner. You've seen all that before in the other videos. So with this, the springs are a little kind of boogered up because somebody's been in here before doing some work, and unfortunately they did not do a very great job of it. But I think I got everything set roughly where it needs to be, so I'm okay with this. The self-propelled system works, which is fantastic. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to just get it running. I do not have the spring or anything on the cable side yet. I haven't gotten that far. I just want to make sure that the actual thing functions and operates before I invest some money into some springs and getting this the way that it needs to be. The more that I spend time with this, the more I'm actually starting to enjoy this mower. So this may end up being my mower that I keep for myself for the backyard. I don't know, I haven't really thought that far into it. It had a real bad rattle when I first started it, and I did find out that somebody, like I said, has been in here before, and this heat shield, this shield here, was on the wrong side. It was causing a real bad rattle, so I figured that portion of it out. So that's good, that's taken care of, so that's no longer an issue. It was a little low on some oil, so I did put some used oil that I had in it just to make sure that it was safe for me to run. We're gonna do an oil change on it. Yeah, so far I'm happy with the way that it sounds. It sounds pretty good. I think what I'm gonna end up doing is going and grabbing one of my other mowers and pushing it around out here to use for some parts. And yeah, let's go do that real quick. I'll be right back, guys. Now I got you back. Went and robbed a spring off of another mower. So trying to do this over your guys' shoulder is not exactly easy, so you guys can still see what's going on. But long story short, this is going to be a pain in the ass. Just don't know which way is going to be easier, especially with you guys being able to see. But what we're trying to do is get a spring to go up and over. It's probably easier going this way, actually. Slide down. Let's try it this way. Oh, I had it! Screwdriver's right in the way. There we go. So there we go. So this is what I was talking about. So the spring is what puts tension on the cable. So you cannot just manually just walk up here and just push this up. And that's what prevents you, long story short, it's a safety feature that has to be on these mowers, because what happens is, like I said, there's a brake or there's like a brake pad on like a normal car. That brake pad rubs up against the flywheel, and that's what actually stops the engine. So it does that, and it also kills the spark from the little switch that's in the front. That's why it's important to make sure you have that stupid spring, because some people think safety means absolutely nothing, and I don't understand that. So next step, let's go ahead and we will throw our air assembly back together, and I will let you guys watch that because I do have the parts for it. So let me get you back on the other side and we'll pick this back up. Now that I got you back, so I got a new air filter. We're gonna go ahead and put that on, and we're gonna start with mounting our base. So the base, obviously the bottom goes in first. Actually, sorry, I jumped the gun. First things first is our gasket. Gasket really only is going to go on one way. And you notice the bottom is flat, so that's your flat piece. If you try putting it on sideways or backwards, nothing lines up. So that's what I was saying, it only goes on one way. So the key to this, and the trick most people don't know about, but on the back of your air cleaner is these little nipples, and that's what these little tiny holes are for on your gasket. So it holds your gasket in place as you set this up in there. So that's the trick that you need to know for these little things. And then your 3 screws, or bolts I should say, sorry, wrong term, it's bolts, not screws. So 1, 2, and the third one is way over here, and I believe it's an 8mm. So let me grab my drill, which I'm not really sure where I left it. Eight millimeter is what I'm looking for. So these don't have to be on crazy stupid tight, because it's just to hold the plastic onto the face of the aluminum. And then your air filter cap. So put your new air filter in, slide the bottom down, and screw in the top. Should be the same size. So that's your air filter assembly on this engine. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna see what I can find for a screw to mount on the top of this, and then we will reassemble our shroud across the top, and we'll go from there. So let's take a minute so I can go check in the hoard for some screws, and I'll be right back, guys. So you notice that as soon as I disconnected the zip tie that I put around it, because that's how it was when I bought it, it stopped. So the spring is doing what it's supposed to do, which is the kill switch, and the engine brakes. You notice how like instantly that motor just stopped. That's exactly what that safety right there is designed to do. That spring is designed to stop the engine from spark, which is the little piece right there, and then that is the brake that's going to stop the engine. Long story short, it needs a new cable. I just got done mowing the grass with it out back. Actually runs pretty good. I'm actually impressed. So I'm going to show you what I mean by it needs a new cable. So it's actually not at the motor, it's up on the handles. So let's get this in focus for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about. So the way that these handlebars are supposed to work, come on, mower. Okay, let's get you guys recentered back up and focused. So the way that these handlebars are designed to do is this plastic clips around the bar, pretty obvious, but there's supposed to be a nipple that's inside of here that fits inside of one of these two holes. So if I push this down to where I think it's supposed to go, which is, let's just say it's the top one, and I push this down, you notice the handle comes up off of the handlebars. So let's zoom up and out so you guys can see a little bit better about what I'm talking about. So watch this metal, or this plastic clip right here. When I squeeze on this handle, you notice the whole thing just slides and moves freely up, because that pin is missing, or that nipple is missing to keep it in its place, because that's the keeper. So if I held this down here, and if I could keep this from moving and actually did this, then the end down there, let's get you guys in focus again. So that cable then would shrink up, because that's what's supposed to happen. So long story short, we just got to get a new blade. Still has some issues starting from being cold. I think it's more of the springs that are just kind of out of whack. So I'm going to give it a start, see if it starts. Oh, it's not going to, because I got the brake on. So yeah, never mind. So that's that. So I'm going to order a new cable, and then I'm going to see if I can scrounge up some parts for the spring assembly that's over there for the choke mainly. I think that's the culprit of the massive issues. And then I was able to adjust the drive cable. It's kind of a unique, pretty cool system. I'm trying to get so you guys can see. So if you look right there, this piece right here, that is adjustable. So I can twist this in any orientation that I want, and that puts, it's basically 2 cables in one, and what happens is, I'm trying to see, I can't see with this. So what happens is, when I get 2 cables, and you can adjust the tightness and everything by that gap, which is pretty cool. So I just tinkered with that a little bit to get the self-propelled system how I wanted it, and it cuts really good. As you can see, I got grass all over the back of it. My grass is extremely thick and wet right now, so it's been raining non-stop for what feels like a good month in here in Ohio. So it struggled in some thicker stuff, but that's to be expected because it's a big mower. I think it's 22 inches, and it is a rural drive self-propelled, so the self-propelled takes away a little bit from the power. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with the way it cuts. So I will do a oil, I'm gonna do a full tune-up on it. We'll change the oil, change the spark plug. I'm gonna do all that off camera. You guys don't need to see that. You've seen enough of that. But I will bring you back for whenever I put a new brake cable on, so you guys can see how that is. That's a quick, easy, I don't know, 2, 3, 5 minute job. Pretty quick and easy. Yeah, I'm happy with the snapper. It's got some issues. Besides that, the back deck for the chute is kind of, the deck itself isn't broke, but the hinge that keeps it closed is, and I don't know if I want to tinker with that or not. I probably won't. And then, like I said, it's got some starting issues with the spring assembly, so I'm going to tinker with that one as well. I'm going to try robbing parts off of the locked up engine that I got in the back, off of a Toro recycler that's got, I believe, the same engine on top, just different housing. But it's still Briggs and Stratton. This one's 190 cc, so this is the bigger engine. So this is the big boy of most engines when it comes to push mowers, which is why this thing weighs a ton. But other than that, I like the way it cuts. I like the way it drives. Just got little things we got to work out. So that just gives you a brief update. So I'll bring you guys back whenever I get some more parts, and we will tackle this together. So I'll see you guys in a couple days. But for you, it'll be just about 10 seconds. Bye.